Erev Tov, I'm Stephen Benoon. You are watching Israeli News Live. Good evening, and for those of you that are watching us live on live stream, God bless you and welcome to the broadcast this evening. Now, I will not be able to share with you this evening the screen because I have some breaking news that just came out, and I am in the process even now of putting this information together very rapidly. It was a article that came out on Haaretz, which we'll be going to momentarily. But first, I want to bring you to some breaking, also headline news that is coming out of Israel today. And by the way, we will be there in just a matter of a few weeks here, and we'll also be later with Brother Begley in October in Israel. So we're going to be in Israel for the next couple of months here, and I ask you to be praying for us on that. And of course, certainly could use your support in this as well. This is a very, very expensive trip, I should say. It's hard to bring that out exactly what I mean by that. But anyway, here's what I want to bring to your attention. This is very serious, friends. And so those of you that are watching on Israeli News Live, I know this will be a blessing for you as well. First, let's bring to you the hostilities that are happening in Jerusalem as well as on the border of Syria and Israel, things that are happening that are unraveling there today. Then we're going right into our prophetic segment, which I know is going to be a blessing to you when you hear this. Anyway, it says on Arutz Shiva, police raid hostile Arab neighborhood in Jerusalem. That happens to be East Jerusalem, and by the way, I got dropped off in the streets over there one time. It is a very unpleasant place to be, especially if you're not Palestinian. But anyway, there it says here, police closed off the road from Isawaya toward Ma'al Adamim Thursday as it raided the northeastern Jerusalem neighborhood and carried out arrests. The raid follows extensive rioting and disturbances in recent weeks that emanated from the area, which has been a trouble spot for years. And for those of you that have visited Israel, let me just share this with you. That spot there is over there by the Mount of Olives, just over the hill there where the I believe that's the Seven Arch Hotel is there. So if you've ever been up on the lookout area of the Mount of Olives, that neighborhood in behind there is where this riots are taking place there. It says police sources added that policemen from Jerusalem District, Jerusalem Border Police, and reinforcements were operating inside Isawaya to prevent rioters from emerging and harming people on the roads. Because naturally, I mean, all you got to do is come right down the hill there, and this is where all the tourists are. So a very, very serious situation there in Jerusalem. A policeman was lightly hurt Wednesday from shards of firebomb. Footage of the violence inside Isawaya can be seen in the embedded video by clicking the frame, which we are sharing that with you on YouTube. Those that are watching the news broadcast on YouTube, you're able to see this footage as well there. The Jerusalem Police is also taking action on the investigative and intelligent levels, arresting locals who broke the law in previous events and endangered security forces. In the course of the past 6 months, 16 suspects in rioting arrested in Isawaya, 11 of them minors. In addition, 11 minors aged 15 to 16 were arrested on suspicion of rock throwing, 8 of whom have been charged. And by the way, all you have to do is look at just how serious rock throwing can be. We have footage ourselves of the vehicles, Jewish vehicles, that have been just demolished by it. But as well, it has also caused some serious injuries to people, because we're not just talking about necessarily little tiny rocks like kids throwing rocks at cars back like we did in America when we were little kids just to put a little ding on a car. We're talking about huge stones that hitting the window that can cause crashes and serious injuries to the individuals that this happens to. In other news as well, going on in Israel there, Israel has had to respond to rockets that have been fired into Israel from Syria. And so I'll bring you to that news as well. Says the IDF responds to Syrian missiles with artillery fire. Hours after 4 rockets fired at northern Israel from Syria, IDF returns fire, accusing regime of responsibility for allowing strikes. After 4 rockets were fired on northern Israel from the Syrian Golan Heights on Thursday, the IDF responded with artillery fire just hours later. Sources in Syria report that the 90th Brigade of the President Bashar al-Assad's regime army is coming under fire, reports Channel 2. Arab media reports indicate the return of fire has inflicted a death toll on Syrian forces. And by the way, I will be up at the border of Syria here in the next couple of weeks there, so maybe we'll be able to catch some more footage for you as we have before of the conflict that is going on in Syria. Now, I might add as well, Brother Gary, a very dear friend of mine there on YouTube, Brother Gary has done many videos about this. The Lord has showed him in prophecy that of course, as the Bible has prophesied as well, that Damascus is going to be destroyed. And he saw this in a vision not too long ago, maybe about a year ago, that I forget exactly what the details were on that, but it would be started by some type of rocket or something that would come into Israel, and Israel would eventually respond with a nuclear type device, totally wiping them out. Brother Gary also believes that they will wipe out Iran, and I can't confirm or say as far as that. We do know Damascus is definitely going to be destroyed, but some very interesting things that God has shown our brother there. But anyway, the article goes on to read, the Israeli security sources said that the rockets were fired by the Islamic Jihad terrorist organization funded and directed by Iran, which I can understand that. We just shared with you the video, and show that some more of that footage again here on our YouTube screen for you there, to show you how that Iran is planning on bringing together the different Arabic forces. I'm not sure which ones that are pictured in the video by their uniforms. I don't know how to do that or read their language, but it clearly they are certainly planning attack on Israel and trying to take Jerusalem. They will fail in this. According to biblical prophecy, they will fail. But anyway, it says the attack comes even as an Islamic Jihad terrorist jailed in Israel ended his hunger strike on Thursday, a strike that led the group to threaten attacks if he were to die. The IDF notes that the Syrian regime is responsible for the rocket attacks emanating from its sovereign territory, and it will bear responsibility for the results. The return fire comes around 2 hours after 4 rockets were fired, with 2 landing in the Golan Heights and 2 in the Upper Galilee. No one was wounded in the attacks, which I'm glad to hear that. We have a precious sister up there just north in the Golan Heights there, Sister Shoshana. So hopefully she's already emailed me to let me know that everything's okay. I haven't had a chance to check those emails there, but Sister Shoshana, we certainly love you, and God's protection be upon you and your family there. Anyway, those rockets set off 2 large brush fires in the Upper Galilee, leading 6 firefighting crews aided by several firefighting airplanes to dispatch to the fight and blazes and prevent them from advancing towards the Golan Heights. Anyway, so we don't know if this is going to escalate any further. We do know that Iran is definitely planning on doing an attack on Israel in the coming week, whether it be weeks, months, or even years, I cannot say, but they definitely are going to be doing something. There's without a doubt that is going to happen there. So we just have to wait to see how this is going to play out. But by the way, the next bit of news that I'm going to share with you, this news here has so many implications. It is so profound. If you're watching on live stream, have no idea, guys, I don't have the site open where I can actually see you guys on live stream, and I apologize for that. But this news here, sent to me by Brother Kellen Davison, a very precious friend of mine. And by the way, we'll be with Brother Kellen in Israel here in the next few weeks there. September 16th through the 18th at the meetings there that will be held in Jerusalem there. Speaking, Avi Lipkin will be speaking there as well. Avi speaks right after I speak there at the meeting there. A number of other speakers, my wife as well, will be speaking in this particular event. reconciliationwithisrael.com, by the way, if you want to go and check that website out. And also I encourage you to help support the event there. But anyway, let me just say this to you here. Brother Kellen sent me this article from Haaretz. We posted this on our Facebook, Israeli News Live Facebook page. You do have to register to see the entire article, but I'm going to read it for you so you can see this. This is prophecy, friends, and I'm going to share with you in this prophetic segment how serious this is so that you can put the pieces of this puzzle together. The article is entitled, New Diaspora Ministry Initiative Could Open Israel's Gates to Millions of Non-Jews with Jewish Links. Oh my gosh. You know, the title of the article is absolutely more than provocative. It's astounding. It is exciting to hear this. And by the way, Avi Lipkin, which I've never got to meet Avi, I was supposed to be on a radio broadcast with him once before, and something happened. I couldn't get in on that program, but we were supposed to do a program together. But we'll be speaking together in Israel. And Avi has been lobbying for this very thing right here. So this is speaking about those Jews that are you're Jewish by birth, but yet you're not a practicing Jew. They are working on passing a law in Israel and revamping the laws in order for you to be able to come home to Israel. I bet right now that we've got praises to God and hallelujahs and amens going all over the place. And I'm going to read to you this article, though. And let me just say this, though, before I get started, because I want to give you that little leak of prophetic side of this. And then we're going to go into this from the biblical aspect of this. You understand, in Zechariah's prophecy, in the 10th chapter, it's also in Hosea, it's in Ezekiel, God promised, according to Zechariah's prophecy, to return the house of Judah first before returning the house of Israel. But the house of Israel must come home. How do you expect to have 144,000 from the 12 tribes of Israel unless all 12 tribes are home? But the thing is many of the Jews that are part of the house of Israel are not Jewish by religion now. They've been dispersed for almost 3,000 years. And Amos prophesied that in the third day, before that day would end, that they would come home. All right? This is the prophecy, that they would come home. And this prophecy is about to be fulfilled. But before it can be fulfilled, the two witnesses have got to come on the scene. Brother, sister, you are on the premise of the most grandest prophecies of Bible history being fulfilled before your eyes. Oh my gosh, I'm excited beyond measure. And I ask you, pray for me tonight before I publish this on YouTube, that God will have me put the right things up here for you so you can see these things. Let's dive into the article here. It's by Judy Maltz. It's published here August 17th, today at 6:32 p.m. And let's read this article together, indicating a possible shift in government policy toward emerging Jewish communities around the world. Israel's Ministry of Diaspora has created a new committee to present recommendations on what it defines as groups with ties to the Jewish people. Oh my gosh, blessed be to God. Members of these emerging Jewish communities are not allowed to immigrate to Israel today under the law of return. Why? The house of Judah came home first. What did the house of Judah do when they came home? They made laws because why? They have kept to the Pharisaic laws of 2,000 years ago. So they made laws, they made guidelines that if you didn't believe in Judaism, you could not return home. You had not only to be Jewish, but you had to be a practicing Jew. Well, that pretty much wipes out the possibilities of the house of Israel to return. And I knew something had to give somewhere. In fact, a friend of mine, Lori Cardozo-Moore, said to me a little while back that she knew of a rabbi that was working from New York City that was working to try to get Israel to open the door to the Jews that were part of the Inquisition. That's my own father's family, part of the Inquisition. We'll get into that. Let's read the article. I don't want to get sidetracked yet. Anyway, it says here, member of these emerging Jewish communities are not allowed to immigrate to Israel today under the law of return, which provides citizenship only to individuals who have at least one Jewish grandparent or Jewish spouse or have converted to Judaism. Emerging Jewish communities cover a wide spectrum. They include groups that claim descent from so-called lost tribes, such as the B'nai Manasseh, from Northeast India, which, by the way, that's Michael Froon's group on IsraelReturns.org. He has the same website as ours, IsraelReturns.com as ours. His is IsraelReturns.org. And they also include B'nai Anasim, descendants of the Jews forced to convert during the Spanish and Portuguese Inquisitions. In addition, they include numerous communities in South America and other remote corners of the world that have recently discovered Judaism and embraced Jewish practices, sometimes converting to Judaism, but often not. That's what's important. Often they don't. Scholars who study emerging Jewish communities, also known as Judaizing communities, have estimated their numbers in the millions. All right? Should the new advisory committee recommend a change in existing immigration policy, should the government adopt that recommendation, it could potentially lead to a vast increase in the pool of individuals eligible to move to Israel from around the world. The committee was set up by Devir Kahana, the Director and General of the Diaspora Ministry. Over the past few years, there has been an increasing awareness of large groups of people who are not Jewish by any definition, but who have some type of connection to the Jewish people, he said in a press release published by his office. And so, by the way, friends, before we get too excited there, believe me, they're not going to be too open to the idea of bringing Christians in that are Jewish. But the thing is the law, if it gets passed, which I know it will, it's going to open the door, though, for many Jews that are believers to come to Israel. It will have to. It'd be nearly impossible to put a loophole there to deny them. You know, why should they have to convert to Judaism if they're born Jewish? The homeland is to Jews. Should the new advisory committee recommend a change in existing immigration policy, and should the government adopt that recommendation, it could potentially lead to a vast increase in the pool of individuals eligible to move to Israel from around the world. The committee was, okay, we read this, I apologize. Some of these groups want some kind of association with the Jewish people and or Israel, which raises the question of what ties the government should have with them. As the diaspora ministry is in charge of the connection between the Jewish communities and the diaspora of the state of Israel, we decided to convene this committee to look into what kind of policies should be put in place regarding these groups, if any. They shouldn't say if any. They have to do it. And let me say this. Those of you that are Jewish, that are part of this committee, and I'll be speaking with Avi Lipkin, I'll let him know as well, and he knows this himself. It is prophecy. The house of Israel must come home. This must pass if we expect Bible prophecy to be fulfilled. All right? The committee is headed by, since assuming the government position 2 years ago, Kohanan has tried to take over responsibility for Israel's relations with the diaspora from the Jewish Agency. His committee has no representatives on board from the Jewish Agency, nor from the Immigration Absorption Ministry or the Foreign Affairs Ministry. The committee is headed by Dr. Ofer Havri, a former executive at the Jerusalem-based Shalim Center, a right-wing think tank. The Diaspora Affairs Ministry declined to respond to a question from Haaretz regarding the specific communities the communities would be examining. It also refused to say whether the ultimate object was to promote their immigration to Israel. Israel's Gates, there is one private organization in Israel very active in reaching out to such emerging Jewish communities, in particular the B'nai Manasseh. That organization is Shvi Yisrael, or IsraelReturns.org, was able to obtain special government consent to bring nearly 1,000 members of this community to Israel in recent years. And by the way, Michael Froon, a friend of mine, he also sent me an email when this was going on, which we sent out a call to the people to raise support because the government was charging them to come home. Why? Because they could not do the proof of Judaism, but they were a practicing Jewish community in India. And by the way, we just started a group on on Facebook called Christians in India Standing for Israel, something of that effect there. You could look that up if you would like to be a part of that. But anyway, it goes on to say there that even though they are not eligible to immigrate under the law of return, Michael Froon, the founder and director of Shvi Yisrael, has long advocated a change in government immigration policy that would allow such groups to come to Israel as easily as Jews who are recognized as such by the law of return. Opening Israel's gate to such communities, he has argued, would help guarantee that Israel maintains its Jewish majority. Now, that, I'm sure, is what Israel is afraid of, is that when they pass this law, it's going to open the door to people that are not Jewish as far as by religion. And it should not be an issue, but it's going to have to happen. And the reason it's going to happen is to fulfill prophecy. One of the members of the committee is Professor Benjamin Ish Shalom, founder and the president of Beit Morasha, an Orthodox academic institution in Jerusalem. Ish Shalom has been a driving force behind a new traveling rabbinical court set up last month by the Jewish Agency in order to facilitate Orthodox conversions. Abroad, his participation in the advisory committee would seem to indicate that the diaspora ministry is considering the possibility of having members of their emerging Jewish communities undergo Orthodox conversions. And you see, that's the part that is wrong for them to do. You're not a Jew because conversion. You're Jewish because you were born. You're an Israelite. You're a Hebrew by birth, not by conversion. The other committee members of Zvi Hassar, a former cabinet secretary of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Roten Yadlin, a lawyer who served as Hauser's deputy, journalist Fiamma Nierenstein, Israel's ambassador designated to Italy, and a former outspoken Italian lawmaker for Silvio Berlusconi, right-wing People of Freedom Party, and Dr. Einat Wilf, a former Israeli lawmaker who is a senior fellow at the Jewish People Policy Planning Institute, an independent think tank. In an invitation for experts to appear before the new committee, the Diaspora Ministry noted that one of its mandates will be explore the possibility of recruiting emerging communities for Israel's Hasbara, which is a public diplomacy efforts, and having them assist in the struggle against the anti-Semitism around the world. You know, the thing is, and there's a little bit more to the article there, but just to save time, let me just encourage you to go look this up. Judy Maltz was the writer of this. She's a correspondent for Haaretz News. But let's take a look, in light of this here, let's look at biblical prophecies that are going to be fulfilled with this. I want to first take you to the book of Zechariah, and looking at Zechariah chapter 10, verse 8 through 10 there, and then we'll look at Zechariah chapter 12. And by the way, for those Jewish rabbis that happen to watch this particular video, let me encourage you, if you do this rite of return and do a forced conversion, you are no better than the Spanish Inquisition at that point there. Because what are you doing? You are forcing people to convert to a doctrine that is not the way the law of God works. They are Jews because they are born Jews. And they have every bit of the right to return because their parents were Jews, their mothers, their fathers. And it shouldn't be just because of the mother. It should be mother or father, either one. Grandparent, mother, or father on either side, either one. This is the way the law of Moses would have it to be. All right, now, let's go to the book of Zechariah 12, okay. In that day I will make, verse 4. In that day saith the Lord, I will smite every horse with astonishment and his rider with madness. Keep this in mind. It's very important that you keep that in mind about the horse, okay? All right. I want to slow down because I don't want you to miss this here. And I will open mine eyes upon the house of Judah, and I will smite every horse of the people with blindness. And the governors of Judah shall say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem shall be my strength, and the Lord of hosts their God. In that day will I make the governors of Judah like an earth of fire among the wood, and like a torch of fire in a sheaf. And they shall devour all the people round about of the right hand and on the left. And Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own places, even in Jerusalem. See? The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. Speaking of the house of Israel. And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and the supplication, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. That word actually is thrust through. All right, now, let me Bear with me just one moment here, guys. One moment. Before I let's back up just for a moment here. I need to share this with you from Zechariah 8:13. Let's go to verse 12. For the seed shall be prosperous, the vine shall give her fruit, and the ground shall give her increase, and the heavens shall give their due. All right? And I will cause the remnant of this people to possess all these things. And it shall come to pass that as you were a curse among the heathen, O house of Judah, and O house of Israel, so will I save you, and you shall be a blessing. Fear not, but let your hands be strong. All right? That's a prophecy that he would bring the house of Israel and the house of Judah back to their homeland. Is that not right? All right. Now, let's also look. Right? But he brings home the house of Judah first because why? The Pharisees and Sadducees convicted Yeshua and had him killed. When he was coming to try to establish the Word of God the way God had intended it to be, the way it was delivered to Moses in the very beginning. And the Pharisees had gone way off the Word of God. And Jesus said, you're teaching doctrines, the commandment of men, for my word. And it wasn't the Talmud either, by the way. The Talmud didn't come into being until 200 years after Yeshua was here. So what were they teaching? All right? I want you to think about that for a moment. But looking at this, so you got to keep in mind, before the house of Israel can come home, something else has got to happen. All right? First off, as we see in Zechariah 12 right here, it says, and I will pour upon, verse 10, I will pour upon the house of David and upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication, and they shall look upon me whom they have pierced, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. I take it back, Jerusalem, this is not speaking, it's the inhabitants of Jerusalem. It's not the house of Israel here. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. See, in that day shall they be in great mourning in Jerusalem as the mourning of Hedrimon and the valley of Megiddon. And the land shall mourn every family apart, the family of the house of David apart, and their wives apart, the family of the house of Nathan apart, their wives apart. They're from the tribe of Judah, both of them. See, the family of the house of Levi apart, and their wives apart, the family of Shimei apart, and their wives apart. The Levites from the tribe of Levi, Shimei from the tribe of Benjamin. All right? And all the families that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. That's the Samaritans. You see? But he said he would bring home the house of Judah first. But in Zechariah chapter 8, we find out that he's going to restore both the house of Judah and the house of Israel. Ezekiel chapter 37, Ezekiel's told to prophesy to the valley full of dry bones. Can these bones live again? They said, our hope is lost. We're all dried up. Do you know where that story actually comes from? Do you know that story is actually from the book of Jasher or Yasher? When what? It was the Ephraimites went out, according to the book of Yasher, and the book of Yasher is quoted in the canonical Bible that we have today. It's actually quoted there. It says not the rest of these things written in the book of Yasher. The prophet, I think it's in the book of Joshua we find that actual statement at. But do you realize that in the book of Yasher, the Ephraimites went out before Moses came down. And they died in the valley. And they did not suffer them to be put in graves. Thousands of the children of the house of Israel. Of course, Ephraim was the tribe that was the head of the house of Israel. No wonder why the prophet says, can these bones live again? They say our hope is lost, our hope is gone. Why? Because they didn't get to hear Moses, and neither did they get to hear the Messiah, Yeshua, when he come. But God promises to bring them to life again to hear it. But not only that, but we also have, let me take you to this as well. God says here, for I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, and as a young lion to the house of Judah. See, he's angry. Ephraim is actually the type for the house of Israel, not Jerusalem. I apologize for that a moment ago. But it's Ephraim. See? God uses the name synonymous, either the house of Israel or he calls it Ephraim. All right? In this case here, he's calling him Ephraim. I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, as a young lion to the house of Judah. I will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue them. Rescue him. I will go and return to my place till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction they will seek me earnestly. Early. Imagine that. Seek me early. Now he's speaking about the house of Judah there. And yes, did they not go through a great affliction? Of course they did. You know, it brings me to a prophecy that Yeshua said in the Essene Gospel, and it's actually in the book of Revelation. It's quoted in the book of Revelation. It's just worded a little bit different. Yeshua says, he that lives by the sword shall die by the sword. How do you live by the sword? By what you eat, you have to slay it. I'll be bringing these things up later this week, because I want you to see some things on that. In Revelation it says, he that killeth with the sword shall be killed with the sword. Just paraphrasing that one there. What we reap is what we sow. They killed the Messiah. And so therefore they had to reap what they sowed. Going into Hosea chapter 6, verse 1, though, here's the prophecy. Come and let us return unto the Lord, for he hath torn, and he will heal us. He hath smitten, and he will bind us up. After 2 days will he revive us, and the third day he will raise us up, and we shall live in his sight. Then shall we know if we follow on to know the Lord. His going forth is prepared as the morning, and he shall come unto us as the rain, as the latter and former rain unto the earth. O Ephraim, what shall I do unto thee? O Judah, what shall I do unto thee? For your goodness is the morning a cloud, and as the early dew it goeth away. Therefore have I hewed thee by the prophets. I have slain them by the word of thy mouth, and the judgments are as the light that goeth forth. See? Now, go back to verse 2. After 2 days will he revive us. In the third day he will raise us up. You know, that covers both Judah and Israel, the house of Israel. After 2 days, see, he will revive us. It's been over 2,000 years, hasn't it? After 2 days, he will revive us. That's the house of Judah and the house of Israel. The house of Israel has been, 2,000, close to 800 years? See? And in the third day, he will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. 1,000 years on earth is 1 day with the Lord. There's your days. And he's bringing them both back home. Ezekiel's prophecy is there. Zechariah is there. Hosea's prophecy is there. And he brings back both houses. Now, let's go back though to Zechariah, because I want you to see this. It's very important, and I've brought this out in many videos before. We read verse 10, we read verse 11. This is where the mourning is being done, and we find out now they're separating their families apart. David, Nathan, the family of Levi, their wives apart. Shimei. Remember I told you that story before about David? David, when he crosses and he goes and sits on the Mount of Olives, looks back, weeps over Israel, leaves his 10 concubines behind. What is the 10 concubines? It's the 10 virgins of Revelation. See? I know in the Christian Bible, the New Testament, it says the 5 are foolish, 5 are wise, but nonetheless they're all virgins. 10 concubines of David, they were not full-fledged wives because they didn't have a proper wedding ceremony. But David said, care for my house in my absence. You want to do something for God, care for the Jewish people, and God will honor that. And even though Absalom abused them publicly, David said, care for them. You know, David mourned like unbelievable over the death of his son Absalom. And his own men were like, why are you doing this? You're bringing a disgrace. But why did David mourn Absalom's death? Even though he rose up against him, he wanted to kill his father. But David loved him and he mourned bitterly for him. Why? Because Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, loves Israel so much, even though they killed him, even though they put him on a tree and killed him. He knew their children in the future will end up believing him. And because he knew the prophecy of Zechariah, he knew that Zechariah said that they will look upon me whom they have thrust through. He wasn't speaking of the hands or the feet in that prophecy. Don't try it, because Rabbi Singer will certainly get you with that one there. He knows that the word is thrust through. And it was. Just like it was with Adam in the book of Adam and Eve that the Jews took out of the canon. You know why the Jews took the book of Adam and Eve out of the canon of their Bible? So that you wouldn't know the truth. You want to know why? Because God says to Adam in there that I will come myself, and I will come in human flesh, and I will give my life for you. Do you know that in that book right there, that Satan took and came into a bodily form, and when Adam was trying to offer a pure oblation to God, not an animal sacrifice, but a pure oblation to God, what did Satan do? He ran in there real quick at that altar and took a stone and drove it into his side of his ribs there and into his heart and killed Adam. And Adam died right there on the very altar that he was trying to give a pure oblation to God. His blood poured out, the Bible said, and water separated from it, just like Yeshua. And the Jews know it. That's why they don't want you to know about this book. That's why they took it out and hid it from you. It's there. It's there. This is why the two witnesses are coming to set these things in order. Everybody wants to fuss and fight over everything else. You need to wake up to what God is going to do. The house of Israel is about to receive their two witnesses, and they're going to be shaken from the top of their head to the bottom of the soles of their feet. And let me tell you something. The witnesses have to come before the house of Israel can come. That law I just read to you that is so precious, that they're going to pass to allow the house of Israel to come home, whether they're Jew or not, whether being Jewish, but whether they're believers or not, it's going to pass. But it will not pass until the two witnesses have started their ministry. Then it'll pass. Or right there at the time, about the same time. Interesting, these things that are happening, isn't it? Anyway, David mourned over his son Absalom. His own name in Hebrew means, my father is peace. Avshalom is how you say it. My father is peace. But he wanted David dead. Just like the Jews, the Pharisees back in Jesus' day, Yeshua's day, they wanted Yeshua dead. Why did they want him dead? They didn't like Absalom, they didn't have the revelation that his father was the king of Israel. Neither did the Pharisees 2,000 years ago. So they wanted him dead. But David wept because he knew. He knew. If his son had the revelation, he'd know who he was. And he wouldn't have done what he did. David even said, Shimei, by the way, spit on David when he was leaving. But who was the one that met David on the way back down to the river? Notice David also said there was two men. He said to him, get my house in one mind and one accord. When you get them in one mind and one accord, then I can return. There's your prophecy of your two witnesses by David. Get them in one mind and one accord, then I can return. Shimei, a Benjamite. And by the way, Shimei in David's story was a Benjamite. The Benjamites in the days of Yeshua were the ones that were saying, let his blood be upon us and upon our children. We got what we asked for, didn't we? This is why we went through a Holocaust. Much more than just that, too, brothers. Much more than that. It's going to be revealed to you very soon what more it is. Anyway, the two witnesses have to come on the scene. They're coming very shortly. Also, the dealing with what's going to happen with Syria. and these countries round about Israel. All is going to happen at the time of the coming of the two witnesses. It's the only way the house of Israel can come home. Anyway, he brings in also Benjamin. Then he says the family of the house, he says in verse 14, and all the families that remain, every family apart, and their wives apart. They mourn. You ever notice how they separate each one of their own family, the wives apart from the men? Orthodox custom. Many Orthodox Jews are going to believe. And let me tell you something, rabbis in Israel, I reminded you this in a video recently, Isaiah 66, if you kill an ox as if you slew a man, don't do it. Don't be a part of what they're wanting to do. And I know they're just doing it blindly, not knowing. Jeremiah said, God never commanded it. Well, we know that Levitical law is there. This didn't come according to the perfect will of God. We'll go into that a little bit later. Anyway, these are astounding, absolutely astounding prophecies that we're looking at right here. And again, let me take you back down to verse 8 in Zechariah 10. I will hiss for them and gather them, for I have redeemed them, and they shall increase as they have increased. And I will sow them among the people, and they shall remember me in far countries. And they shall live with their children and turn again. I will bring them again also out of the land of Egypt and gather them out of Assyria. And I will bring them into the land of Gilead and Lebanon, and a place shall not be found for them. And he shall pass through the sea and with the affliction, and shall smite the waves of the sea. And the deeps of the rivers shall dry. And the pride of Assyria shall be brought down, and the scepter of Egypt shall depart away. Did you notice that right there? He's going to deal with Assyria when Israel returns. And he's also going to deal with the scepter of Egypt. That happens to deal with Rome. And by the way, my Jewish brethren, in closing in this news broadcast, I've said it in many other news broadcasts already. The Pope of Rome is fulfilling scriptures in your land, but not for the good. You've allowed him to drink on Mount Zion. You've allowed him access to the mountain of God. Mount Zion is a holy mountain. According to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the community at Qumran believed that Mount Zion was the holy mountain of God. You have allowed Satan himself to come and have a communion service according to Obadiah's prophecy. You've allowed it. You shouldn't have, but you did. Prophecy said it would happen, it happened. The following week, there's both men and women. The first time they did it, according to the Hebrew and Obadiah, it was masculine plural. Men only would be in this particular wine drinking ceremony. And they would continue to drink. And all the nations, the Gentiles, showing that it would not be Jews that would be doing this. Now, Mount Zion belongs to the Vatican. God is going to liberate you according to the prophecy of Obadiah as well. The time of Israel's deliverance is at hand. She won't be delivered, though, with an army. She'll be delivered by two witnesses. The two olive branches, the two olive sticks, according to Zechariah's prophecy. According to the Jewish prophet John in Revelation chapter 11. You will begin to do the plans and begin the structure of the temple. At least we know the plans because John records, there was a reed given unto me like unto a rod, a measuring stick that is. He said, measure the temple, measure the altar. Leave out the outer court for it's given to the Gentiles. They're given it 3.5 years, according to the lunar calendar. The people at Qumran believed in a solar calendar of 364 days a year, not like the Gregorian calendar, 365 days in a year and a quarter days. Very interesting, the things that are coming. Make ready. Get your house in order. My Gentile brothers and sisters whom I love so dearly. Stand with us here in the closing hours. We're wanting to share so many things with you. Write us. Put it in the comments here. Do you want to know deeper things? Do you really want to know the truth? Are you not afraid to know the truth? We want to tell you many things. Many things are about to be revealed. Even if we don't speak it, your two witnesses will. That's two men that will not be afraid and will not care what anybody has to say. Stand with us here. If you believe in this ministry, stand with us, show us your support. I say this, and I've said it here recently several times, but I'll pull back on saying it because I believe that God will back this ministry because he knows that we're telling you the truth. But if you do believe in it and want to support it, IsraelReturns.com or IsraeliNewsLive.org. You can give either place. Contacts is our address, or you can mail if you prefer to do by mail. We thank you, and we ask God, the God of Israel, to bless you. Be in serious prayer. The hour of your redemption is at hand. Shalom. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live.